In this video, we're going to create a document of a specific size. In this case, it's going to be a postcard, but you can do the same thing for US letter or A4, A3. It's a great way of getting started on a specific size, ready to go for your project. All right, let's learn how to do that now in Photoshop. All right, to get started, what we're going to do is we're going to create a new page and bring our image into it. I find that so much easier. It doesn't matter whether you're new or advanced, it's just easier to do it that way rather than, let's say, opening up the image, okay, and then going to image and go to canvas size and then kind of cropping it down and which way does it crop. And that's a way of doing it, but I'll show you this sneaky way. It's a little bit easier. So to get started, what we're going to do is we're going to go to File and we're going to go to New. I find it's better to create a document the right size and then drag our content into it. Now in this new document window, you can totally just like start typing sizes and resolution. Okay, you can change it from inches to pixels to millimeters. Up at the top here are some handy presets. So I can go to photo and I've got my kind of traditional photograph ratios. I've got print, there's my US and A4 sizes. Now just know that there's this little thing that says view more, because there's all sorts of stuff all tucked in there. Art and illustration web. And the one we want a postcard, and this is hidden under art and illustration. You can see him there. Click on him. Now, just so you know as well, this is the US size for postcards. Postcards, turns out weirdly, as I've moved around the world, aren't the same size like business cards. They're all different in different parts of the world, which is kind of weird. But anyway, 4 inches by 6 inches. I want mine to be landscape. Okay, and we're not gonna just leave everything here matching mine, the resolution the same and the color mode. We'll talk about those a little later in the course. They're boring, not boring, but we'll do them a little bit later. So yours looks like mine. Let's click create. Great, so there's my postcard. First thing we want to do is we want to go to File and try and save it. Weirdly in Photoshop, there's one of those little weird things where it won't let you save it. It's basically saying like you haven't done anything. Nothing worthy of saving, at least. I don't know why. So you can either do something like grab the type tool and start typing, or just go to File, Save As. You end up at the same place. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to put mine on my desktop. I'm going to call mine All-Star Postcard. All-Star Postcard. Now at the end here, I like the V system, V1, V2, V3. Never call it draft or final. Final is like the kiss of death. If you call it final, you'll be calling it final 2. Some of you are laughing because that's what you do. I do it too. V1, V2 works for me, and I'm going to click save. Next thing I want to do is I want to bring in my gradient kind of background thing. And so I'm going to open up the file I was working with earlier. So say you are following along with this course, you might have a file saved somewhere neatly, okay, that's got this gradient that we worked on in the last video. Okay, if you don't, you can go to File, Open, and open up under Exercise Files, under Shapes, O3 Shapes. There's one called Gradient Image, just to save you in case you forgot to save it. I'm using this original one. Okay, it's got text and stuff on here. What I want to do is I'm going to click on the word shoes, okay, or whatever that layer is. I'm going to grab my Move tool, okay, click, hold, and drag. I'm going to move it, hold, holding, and drag it down here. Why I find this easier is, can you see it's actually not the right size? Okay, I find it's just easier to do this and maybe transform it. So with it selected, edit, transform, scale, and I can see it's just a little too big, so I can hold down shift and it's still the wrong proportion. So I'm gonna kind of leave it there and holding shift on the corners and get it to the right size. All right, friends, that is how to create a document. It doesn't really matter what you're doing. We just did a postcard, but you can do anything. And I find it's easier to like bring everything you need into it and resize it to what you need, knowing that it is ready to go. All right, let's get into the next video. With it. So with it selected, pick a fill color. I'm going to use black in this case. There he is. Don't have that selected. Okay, so edit, step backwards. Okay, so don't worry about the color for the moment, or what you can do is see this layers panel. You can click in this kind of like dark gray area that kind of makes sure nothing is selected. Now I can pick a fill color of black even. Cool. Stroke is the line around the outside. I'm going to turn it on just to show you. So I'm going to have a white line around the outside. It's going to be, say, 3 pixels, just for an example. I don't really want a stroke, but I want to show you how it works. And what we're going to do is we're going to draw a rectangle kind of about here. Cool. And you're like, yeah, that's a rectangle, Dan. You can, what you've got to see is this properties over here. The cool thing about using this particular tool is that these can be adjusted. You can see that the stroke here can be made really thick. Oh, that's too thick. Okay. You can decide where the stroke sits, which is this option, I think here. Nope, it is this option, first one. So there's the inside of the square that is across the, you can see either side of that square, or this one is the outside of the square. I don't want any of them. Don't like you stroke. I'm gonna click on it, and I'm just clicking on the strokes, that little icon there, and see this little red line? That means no stroke, please. Okay, awesome. Other things you can do with rectangles, still not very exciting, is these corners here. So I am going, at the moment it's, with the, yours is probably defaulted to this where it's got a dark gray box. Watch, click it. It's not really obvious, okay, but if you have it off, so it should look like this, and what I'm going to do is you can change the one particular corner. So I'm going to do, say, 20 pixels in this corner, hit return, and you can see I've got a 20 pixel radius. It's not probably big enough for you to see. 50 pixel radius. I'm going to zoom in so we can all see it together a little easier. The person editing this video is probably like, you should have done that earlier. You've had to move around. Anyway, so a nice little trick with this is, who knows what 50 pixels is? Like, it really depends on your image size. So what I find is quite useful is, see these little icons here? Pretty much all the icons in Photoshop, you can hover above them. See this like little hand with arrows? Click, hold, and drag it to the right. You can see it goes up, and you can see my little, this guy changing over here. Drag them back to go to a square, drag them back. You can lock them together. So when you do drag them all up, they all go together. All back to 0. What I want is, I just want this one to be a little bit rounded, and we're going to reshape it later on when we do our type. It's going to be that box there eventually. A couple other things we'll do is I'm going to zoom out, Command minus, and I want to do stars up in the corner, these guys here. Okay, so stars are not tricky, but watch this. Click and hold down. They come into this one called the polygon tool. Give them a click, and by default, okay, it's going to give me a polygon. I'm not even sure what shape that is. Pentagon? I want to say pentagon. And you can change the sides up here. I can have 10 sides. And now it's something I can't name. Let's go to undo. I'm using the shortcut. So edit step backwards is this one here. It's on a Mac, it's pretty crazy. It's Command Option Z, steps backwards. On a PC, it's Control Alt Z, just kind of steps backwards. Okay, so I use that quite a bit. I'm probably going to use that from now on in the course. If you see me going backwards and undoing, I'm just going to this option here, using my sneaky shortcut. Great, so what I want to do is I want a 5-sided star, but what I want to do is see this little cog here? Okay, before you start drawing, click on star. Play around with the inset. 50% is going to give you a traditional star. So this one here, you can undo it and just experiment. Have a little play around with the indents by, like, I quite like this one. If you get down to like 15 and then turn the sides up to 50, you get this kind of like starburst. That's quite a handy one for, I don't know. It's how I buy my wine. Okay, I look at the label and does it have lots of these gold stickers on it? I don't even read them, but it's how I buy my wine. With this layer selected, I'm going to click on the trash to get rid of it, and I'm going to get my star. So polygon tool, sides back to 5, click on the little cog, and I'm going to say 50%. If you go to 80%, they're going to be super spiky. You can smooth the edges of it as well. Just have a little experiment. We're just going to do a traditional star. Okay, I'm going to draw it out. And if you want it straight, okay, it's our magical key that we've done. We've used it a few times now because at the moment it's just going to be any old size. So I'm going to drag out and hold down the shift key. You see it kind of locks it into like more usable shapes. It's not straight up and down. I don't know why, but you can this way. Here we go. Eventually I got it. Okay, so hold shift and just kind of rotate it around until you get the kind of, it's locked it's into a symmetrical shape. That's what I want to say. Let's have a look at changing the color of this. So with this layer selected up the top here, I'm going to pick white. One thing is that, say this color disappears, it's probably because you're in your move tool. If you're on this layer on a move tool, it's great for moving around, but if you want to go back to shape it, okay, just have this tool selected, make sure that layer is selected, and this will pop back up. You could leave now because that's almost it for shape. So I'm going to look at some opacity because I want to recreate this kind of star effect and this thing here. So hang around. I'm actually going to draw that circle down there as well. So you can totally leave if you know how to change the opacity already. Yeah. So I want to transform this guy to make him smaller. Okay, so layer selected, edit, transform, scale. Now, what I'm going to do for the rest of this course is, that is a super long way. I'm going to use the shortcut, and it's this one here, free transform. It does a bit of all of these things. It does scale really easily. So I'm going to use Command T. Okay, you don't have to. You can come in here and use this version, but Command T is just a super good shortcut to learn. So it's Control T on a PC. So I hold Command T. Okay, and same thing, hold Shift in the corners and I can resize it. So I want it to be about that. Hit return. I want another version of it, so I'm going to right click it and I'm going to say duplicate layer, polygon 2, click OK. And what I'm going to do is the one at the bottom probably. Okay, so this guy's on top, this guy's on the bottom. I'm going to stretch him out using my super new shortcut. Ready? Command T, and I'm going to scale it out. So if I hold Shift, okay, I can drag it out there, then I can grab anywhere but the center and try and line them back up, and that generally works. Another little shortcut I'm going to share with you. Okay, so I'm going to hit escape. As escape is the I didn't mean it. I'm going to go back to where it was. So I've still got two stars on top of each other. This bottom one though, I'm going to hit my Command T, Control T on PC. Holding Shift makes that come from the top left, okay? But if I hold Shift and Option on a Mac or Alt on a PC, so look down your keyboard, hold Shift, and if you're on a Mac, hold Shift and Option. If you're on a PC, hold Shift and Alt. And what it does is, can you see the difference? It resizes from the center. I don't want to like bamboozle you too much with shortcuts, so you don't have to. You can just line it up. Use Shift and just line it up, but I want to make mine a bit bigger than it was, about there. Cool. Nothing really happens except this bottom one here. I want to lower the opacity. See the opacity slider here? I'm just going to lower it down until I find something I like. And I'm actually going to use the transform. I'm going to make it a bit bigger. And we've got drop shadows on that one. That's going to make it look nicer later on, but we're not there yet. Yeah. If I want to I'm going to resize this top one as well. Actually, I want both to go a little bit smaller. Holding down both those keys. Yep. I'm going to do the same thing for the circle. Okay, so with this guy selected, my ellipse, I'm going to duplicate him. So right click, duplicate layer. You should give them a name. I'm going to be honest with you. I never bother unless I'm sending it to somebody that I need to impress. Okay, and I'm going to my Command T. I'm going to grab one of these side bits, hold Shift and Option on my Mac. Make it a bit bigger. And what I'm probably going to do is I've got the big one on top. I'm going to put it underneath with it selected. I'm going to go over here and pick a new color. We're going to look at specific colors that might match the background in a later tutorial, but that's what I'm doing. So this guy's on top, this guy's underneath, and he's just a little bit bigger. You could play with the opacity of this one as well because it looks kind of cool. Black bar here, I lower the opacity of lots of them just to kind of, I don't know, start showing through things. It's kind of cool when there's a bit of transparency going. Last thing I want to do is I want to get this, I want it to be longer. So I'm going to just use my Command T on a Mac, Control T on a PC, and just drag it out. And the cool thing about live shapes, can you see that corner is still preserved? It doesn't matter how long, it doesn't kind of distort. Okay, so I'm going to just drag it so it's off. Even past the edge, it doesn't matter. Enter on my keyboard to finish it, and I'm going to use it as a kind of a off page into the bleed type box. One other thing I want is a little circle down here. Okay, and I'm going to be lazy. Instead of drawing out an ellipse and giving it a color, I'm going to grab this guy. I'm going to right click it. I'm going to duplicate him. Yes, I'm going to give this one a name because you're watching me. Let's go for small circle. Okay, and I'm going to transform it, holding down my shortcut keys, grabbing anywhere but the center, and it's going to go down here somewhere. Okay. Hit return on your keyboard. That's our epic shape building video done. Let's get into the next video where we start adding type and then we'll do drop shadows. Loads more to do, but let's do it in a following video. Bye now. Hi there, in this video we're going to pick some colors for our shapes. I'm going to show you a cool place like this to get some ideas for colors. I'm also going to show you how to steal colors from an image. Let's get into it now and get started. Welcome back, and first up, if you can work on the file that you've worked on in the last tutorial. If you are just jumping into this particular one, if you go to File, Open, and in the file called Exercise Files, Shapes, there's this one called Coloring Shapes. Okay, open that one up. That's where we're at now. Okay, so we just randomly picked colors and they don't quite suit the background as much as I want. So I'm going to show you kind of two awesome things to do with color This should probably have been in the color section, but it's hard to know, like it's hard to separate them all out into sections too much. So we are going to look at just how to get nice colors. Like I get stuck in like, I'm using like that gradient there, I've used probably on every second job in the last 6 months, just because I like those colors and it's hard to break out of your color schemes. If you look at any of my designs, it's either this green, that kind of, I want to say, I don't know, mandarin-y peach color, and kind of baby blue. All my work's done like that. So the way I get out of that comfort zone and find other colors, the nicest way is under Window, and it's under Extensions, and I don't know why they hide it. So it's such a cool little thing. So Window, Extensions, Adobe Color Themes. Now you need to be connected to the net for this to work. Okay, and this little panel opens up. Now the initial one's a bit boring. It's this Explore one that is quite exciting. Okay, or exciting for me. Can you see here? It's nothing but just a bunch of cool colors. Okay, scrolling down, there's some really cool stuff in here. You can do searches in here. If I need something from the 80s, hit return. Okay, it'll do a search, and that's some pretty successful 80s colors. Type in cafe, bank, actually popular brand. Like I'm from Auckland in New Zealand, right? And weirdly, if you type in Auckland, there's universities, there's council colors, so you can find all sorts in there. If I can find obscure things from an Auckland council, then you can probably find maybe your brand and your corporate colors in there. I'm gonna get rid of it, and I'm just gonna hit search. Actually, I'm gonna go create, and then back to explore. And yeah, like just some cool colors, right? You can say most popular this month or all time. I'm gonna go to all time, and yeah, some cool colors. To use them, the best way to use them is, say you decide on this color here, okay? Panthera? Click on this little dotted line and say add to swatches. Ignore this libraries thing, we'll look at him later on. Close that down as well. And now what we can do is we can click on my ellipse. And if you're using an earlier version of Photoshop, often you still need to go back to any of these path tools, okay? And you can use the fill up here. I'm using a newer version of Photoshop, so ellipse, we can change it here as well. So click on it, and you'll see down the bottom here, those are the 5 color swatches that we've added. So I can go you. And it's just a way of, I guess, picking colors that are nice. Same with this ellipse color here. I'm gonna turn the opacity back up, and I'm just gonna pick one of the colors. It's still not quite working with my colors in the background here, but what you'll find is it's just a neat way of, yeah, busting out and getting color options. Say you're doing some logos or some designs or web work, and you just need to have like 3 color options for the client. Go to Adobe Color Themes and just find some new stuff. All right, I'm waffling. Next thing I want to show you though is how to really kind of steal colors from an image. And that can quite often be a nice way to kind of definitely match the colors because, yeah, just is. So I'm going to have this front ellipse selected. Okay, I'm going to click on this, and nothing really needs to happen. You need to click on this hue slider, and we're not really going to use this. Just move them out of the way, and then see the little eyedropper? We can start working through this. The trouble is it doesn't update this automatically. It's picking the color, which is cool, but it's not going through and like, let's click OK. Now it will work. So I've picked the pink from it. I'm going to grab the green. Same thing, click on the color swatch, grab the hue slider, and just move out here, and I'm going to pick one of the yellows. Or in this case, kind of an orange. Now, are the colors working for me? I'm not that happy with them. So what I tend to do, right, is say this color here, I can use my same trick, pick a different color. Say I pick something from here, something a bit warmer. And I'm not, like, what I want to do is maybe just drag this little circle down a bit to get maybe something that is close to it, but maybe darker, okay, darker that's being used in there. So it's just, yeah, you might find that works good for you. I'm gonna click on this one, do the same thing. I liked that color. I just want it to be like a darker version of it. You just drag it straight down, okay? And yeah, I've made it real ugly. What I'm probably gonna do is I'm going to play around now. You can leave, we've learned our 2 little tricks, okay? Remember, Window, Extensions, Adobe Color Themes, pretty cool. And you can use the eyedropper tool. You just need to have it selected and start stealing colors by clicking on this, and you can just pick colors from there using that. Great explanation, Dan. Let's hit cancel. I'm now just going to mess about picking colors that I like. You can hang around if you like. What I want to do is I don't like this kind of like mud brown color. poo brown. Okay, with it selected, I'm going to go to this, go to this. You don't have to click from just here. I'm going to click on this one. So now the circles are the same colors, but I want this top one to be like this green. I like that green. I randomly picked it, but I think it kind of complements this all very nicely. Eyedropper tool, click OK. Yeah, I'm happy enough with it. One thing though, if you were dealing with corporate colors, you can click on this and just type them in here. So hopefully you've got like a corporate spec manual somewhere. Ask the marketing department. If you are the marketing department and you have no idea what the color is, import the logo and just use the same thing. Use the eyedropper to steal the color from the logo. It's not exact, but could work. Or type in the RGB colors or the CMYK colors if you can find them. I'm gonna hit cancel. I am done. That is the end of the video. Let's get into the next one. All right, bye now. Hey there, in this video we're going to look at type in Photoshop. Okay, there's just two basic flavors. Okay, one is like this text box here, which types on forever. Okay, and then there's this one here with the type tool, which has a fixed width where you can kind of get it to type to kind of be a bit more body copy-ish. We'll learn some tricks about resizing and some other quickie little things as well. So let's get into it. Okay, so we are continuing on with the file from the last project. If you are just jumping into this one, you can open it up by going File, Open. And in your exercise files under O3 Shapes, you can open up this one called Coloring Shapes. Open that up and you'll get close to where we're at now. So we're going to use the type tool. Okay, it's reasonably simple. There's two kind of main ways of using it. Now, one thing to note is because we're working with all these shapes, Photoshop really likes to, if I've got the type tool selected and I'm on a shape layer like this ellipse, it's going to try and combine the text into this shape here, which is not going to work for us. So if you do run into that problems, go to undo, then go to select and go to deselect layers. So there's nothing selected. So there's two ways of adding text, right? If I click once, okay, and I start typing, all stars. Okay, it'll just go on forever. I'm going to select all this text. Okay, I'm dragging my mouse across it and I'm going to pick a friendlier font size for you guys to see. So just if you click once, it's just going to keep going forever. You can put a return in. Okay, so let's say I want all stars on 2 lines. I can just click in front of it, hit return, and I've got a return. Let's ignore the giant leading. Actually, no, let's adjust their leading. So I'm going to select both of these guys. It's because I was playing with this earlier. The leading is the space between the lines, and it is this option here. Okay, you can kind of hover above it. It's called line spacing here, no leading. Okay, and you can set it back to often auto is a happy size. Now, the other way of adding type is let's go back to our move tool that kind of like commits that text you're done. Grab the type tool again, and instead of just clicking once, which types on forever, we're going to click and drag out a box. So I'm going to kind of start halfway in here. I've got to make sure no layers are selected, or at least none of these shape layers. I'm going to click, hold, and drag a box like this. And by clicking, holding, and dragging, what it does is it allows you to have what's called a fixed width box. Just means when I start typing, it's going to break down to the second line. Okay, so it's really good for body text. We're doing this option here, okay, where we want the text to kind of snap around. So a couple of things, useful things, is I'm going to select all my text and delete it all. Okay, I'm going to pick an appropriate font size. 20 is too big for in here. Appropriate font size is, I can't even remember. Let's go for 16 points in this case. I'm going to pick a font. I'm using Museo Sans Rounded. I like it, it's pretty. You're probably not going to have it. Okay, it's just a font that I've downloaded from something called Typekit. So just have a little look through here, pick a font, pick a weight. This is like bold, light, medium. But especially the font size, get it to something like 16. Okay, it's probably still too big. Let's put in 12 for the moment. And I want to show you a couple little things. One is, let's say you want to put in some fake text because you don't have it yet, right? I'm going to switch mine off being capitals, delete that. Mine's on capitals because under advanced here, advanced. Okay, I clicked on this button earlier when I was working on a side project. That just says whenever I type, make it all capitals. I've turned that off and I'm going to close that back in. Advanced is not that advanced. Okay, just has some extra stuff that you might need. I'll close it down. Back in there, please. Great, so I've got 12 points. I've picked a font. And instead of just typing in like mumbo jumbo, because you don't have the text yet, right? You're waiting for the client to have it. There is something in here that's quite handy. I'm going to delete all that. I'm going to go to type. So my cursor's flashing inside of here, type tool, flashing inside of here, type. There's this one called paste lorem ipsum. You probably know what that is already. If you don't, it's just mixed up Latin words. It's like, yeah, they're actual Latin words. They're just in a random order so that they're just good to hold the place of text until you get it. There's lots in there, so that it just dumps a big lot of text in there. So if you delete a word, it's probably going to be replaced by another word. Okay, it's just there's so much kind of spilling out of this. What you can do is I can click in there, go to select, and go to all. So it selects all the text, and find a font size that works for me. 10 point, font, weight. Now we're going to do a couple of things, but we're not going to go through every font option like centered versus right align. You'll be able to work that out. This one is the space between lines. What I like to do as well, you can type it in here. You can go, oh, I want it to be 24. Okay, but I like to, on these icons, we've looked at it before. You can click, hold, and drag on these icons, right? Just kind of drag them up and down. If your computer's old and slow, dragging that thing just is painful. You have to type it in. Sorry about that. To move your type, grab the move tool. Okay, and make sure you're on that layer, and I'm going to move them around. That's going to work for me. What else am I going to do? I'm just going to add some type now. Okay, I'm just going to basically add this stuff in here. You can totally leave now. There's no super awesome, one super awesome trick. Okay, say there's all stars thing here. So I've got the layer selected. Instead of going and playing with the font size, which is fine, you can drag it up, you can drag it up. Okay, I'm going to undo and put it back. What I like to do is that same trick we used to scale up these circles works for fonts. Okay, so Command T on a Mac or Control T on a PC. The long way, remember, is under Edit, Transform, and there's one in there called Scale. And I find this is easy. Holding Shift, I find I can just get the font size that I want roughly there. Hit Return when you're finished, and you can see it's bumped it up to a weird 44.44. In terms of the leading, I'm probably just going to drag it down a little bit. I'm probably going to make this bigger now. Now you can go. There's no super extra tricks. I'm going to grab my lorem ipsum, and I'm going to drag it so it lines up. I'm going to grab this rectangle. I'm going to grab this. I'm going to move it up, and I'm going to grab my type tool. I'm going to put in that C Taylor. Love you, Chuck. You made some sweet shoes. If you're not huge on fonts, okay, often it's nice just to use the same font but different weights. So this one's the really thick 1000, or if it was another font, it might be called extra black or bold. Okay, I'm going to turn it down to like 300. Yeah, 300. Oh, I'm going to go full 100. Okay, font size again. Instead of using font size, I'm just using the Command T key. There's a little bit of dragging this thing around, moving it around, getting it how I want. You can keep typing it out. Often a nice little trick is this all stars layer here. Okay, I'm going to right click it and I'm going to duplicate it. Should give it a name. I'm not going to. I'm just going to drag it down because what I want to do is grab my type tool. I'm going to put it in a web address. So this one's going to be www.scottshoes.com. Font size too small. Use my transform. Scott Shoes doesn't exist, so I made that up because it's my last name. You, when you're doing it, give it your own name. You could be, I don't know, Smith Shoes. I think that's an actual thing though. Oh, look, I've spelt shoes wrong. I kind of like it. It's kind of like, I don't know, I feel like it's foreign. Maybe a little too foreign. Nobody's going to find my website. Shoes. Awesome. So that's going to be it for the kind of basics for fonts. And we are going to look at doing type around a line in the next video. So let's go and do that there. All right. See you there. Hi everyone, it is time to bend your text, warp it around, do some different shapes, adjust it, and definitely look at how to turn it into a fish shape. All right, let's get started. Okay, so to start off with, you need some type. I've got this one here, so this layer here called All Stars. I'm gonna start bending that one like you saw at the front. Yeah, all we need to do is with it layer selected, be on the type tool, and then there's this little option up here. It's this kind of T with the underline underneath it. Click on him, okay, click on it, and nothing happens. Get ready for amazingness. Arcing type. Lower arc type. Okay, it's up to you what you're looking to do with the type. That's kind of getting okay. I'm not hating that. Okay, my favorite is always the fish. Everyone needs fish-shaped text. Once you got the one you want, okay, the style that you like, okay, it's definitely probably fish. Okay, you can play around with these options underneath to decide where it bends, how it bends, okay, and yeah, there's kind of, it's more just playing around, okay, and getting the type how you want. I'm going to get it back to regular by hitting cancel. Okay, with it selected, go up to this bending text tool option again and go through and experiment with some of the other ones. Inflate, squeeze. Okay, I don't do it too much ever, okay, except for fish. Starts destroying text, and I'm not a big fan of that, but you might have a good use case for it, so there it is. Okay, let's click OK. One last thing to show you is if you've got it and you want to adjust it, say it's like too archy for you, okay, with that layer selected, you can click back on this and it jumps back into where you were. And okay, you can keep editing it. If you want to get rid of it, go up to here to none. Let's click OK. All right, that's how to kind of like bend and distort it. Next one we're going to do is, I promised you, text on a path where it kind of follows a circle or any sort of shape. Let's do it in the next video. Hi there. In this video, trying to be clever here, it's text following the path. We even do this where it kind of goes around the top and around the bottom. Let's learn how to do that now in Photoshop. All right, to get started, we are going to do the squiggly line first, then we'll do that kind of badge shape. So the technique is called type on a path. So we need a path to start with. And there's a few ways of making it. We're going to use the pen tool. If you click and hold down the pen tool for a while, hold, and we're going to use the freeform pen tool. If you are a Jedi Master with the pen tool or the curvature pen tool, you can go and use those. But if you're a mere mortal, grab the freeform. It is just as it sounds. You can just draw things. Now, to make your drawings a little bit nicer, there's a sneaky trick. See this little cog here? Click on that. Okay, what you can do is where it says curve fit, you can crank it up a little bit to say something like, it goes up to 10, but 10 is probably too much. Go up to something like 5. Okay, and what it allows you to do is when you draw, I'm going to draw like a little wiggly line there, it just makes your lines look a little smoother. Turn it down to 0 and it will follow your mouse perfectly. It's up to you what you want to do. So that's basically it. Okay, paths are weird. They don't appear in your layers panel. Okay, they appear in this paths panel, which we're not going to really look at. All we need to do is go to layers, grab the type tool. You don't need to change anything. Okay, just grab the regular old type tool and watch my cursor here. Okay, we'll zoom in so you can see my cursor's got the box around it. Watch this when it changes. Can you see? Little line through it. That means it's going to follow this path. So be careful where you click on this line, okay, because that's where the text is going to start. So I'm going to click once kind of towards this end here, and voila. I'm start typing. So it's going to follow the line around. If you're finding yours is not working, it's probably because I'm going to undo. I'm going to go back to the beginning here. Let's say it's not working. I'm going to hit escape on my keyboard. That is the I didn't mean it button. Okay, get out of that. And before you go and click on here is to pick a font size. So you can do it at the top here. If you've got a font size of something really big, it just doesn't work to fit on this line. So it feels like it's not working. It is, just your font's huge. So pick something really small. Start with 5 point or something. I've got 10 point and it worked fine. Click once, start typing here. Notice I'm a terrible speller, lots of deleting. Okay, so once you've got it here, you can do some adjustments. To do the adjustments, you can select the text. Okay, and I'm going to make a bold text here. I'm going to pick a color that you can actually see, dark gray. Cool, and say we want to adjust a few things. Say we want to adjust the start point or the ending point. Actually, before we do that, you can just say center, and it will put it kind of in the middle of the beginning and end. But let's say we want to leave it left aligned and we want to just move this along. Okay, to do that, it's this tool here. Okay, it's underneath the type tool. It's called the path selection tool. Okay, you might have to click and hold down. You want the top one here. With it selected, there's two main things. Okay, there is this dot at the end. Okay, and there's this little cross at the beginning. You can kind of see the icon change. See the little arrow that appears either side? It's the beginning and the end. So I can click, hold, and drag it to say that's the beginning. Or I can drag it all the way to the end here. Okay, and make sure it's at the beginning. Now, I'm very like specific about where I'm drawing because I know if I click, hold, and drag this, and I drag it down, it goes on the other side, and everything's lost. So it can be a little weird to get used to. Okay, if you do get it on the other side, find the beginning again, the little cross, and then try and flip it over, and oh man, it can get weird. Even I find it a little bit troubling. So I'm going to flip it over again. So the crosshairs, the little cross is the beginning, and this, I leave it in here because I'm going to show you it, so it's a little bit hard. So the cross is the beginning. This guy here can be a little problem. He's the end of the line. Not there, it's wherever this dot is, because what can happen is this. Oh, don't do that either. Flip it back across. So there's a little dot. If I drag it up here, can you see how the word disappears? There's just not enough room, okay, for that word to appear with this dot so far up. So you can drag it back down. Be careful not to drag it on the other side. To move this whole thing around, just go back to your move tool and you can click and drag it. To go and start editing again, make sure you have that line selected and either grab the type tool to adjust the text or this path selection tool. And we're going to start working on the circle because what we want to do is this, where it goes top and bottom. So there is not like a magical way of doing it. It's basically what we did up here, but using a circle. So I'm going to go over here. I'm going to grab my tools over here. Okay, my shape tools. We looked at these earlier. I'm going to use ellipse, but what I'm going to do in this case is instead of using the shape, which draws my shapes like earlier, okay, I'm going to switch it to path. The big thing to remember though is later on in this course, it remembers paths. So when I draw things, remember they don't appear as layers, they appear in here. It's a bit of a weird thing. So later on in this course, when you're trying to draw a circle and it's not appearing, you can email me, of course, okay, but it's probably because you haven't switched it back to shape. I'll just show you that. Switch it back to shape when you're finished, causes less problems. But I want this case to be a path. Okay, and I'm going to draw a circle. I'm going to hold shift. I'm going to draw it roughly the right size. Okay, I'm going to grab I'm going to move it around using the this tool here. Okay, the path selection tool. I'm going to grab it so it's kind of there. I'm going to transform it using my Control T, and I'm going to get it so it's kind of sitting inside here. We need to adjust the circle later on. Hit return when you're finished. Now all we need to do is grab my type tool and just be careful when you are clicking on this line to not get this version, which has got a circle around it, or the square around it. This version here with a little line through it. You can see it's a little tricky. I'm going to click there at the top, and I'm going to say this is Scott Shoes. Okay, I want to do a few things. I want to rotate it around. Now, what we can do is you can play around with the I guess center alignment, right alignment to try and get it. Or what I like to do is just rotate it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on my move tool because I'm halfway through typing. So some of my shortcuts don't work. If I try and type Command T now, it doesn't work because I'm halfway through typing. Okay, so what I'm going to do is go back to my move tool. I'm going to go to edit, transform, and I'm going to use rotate. Now I hope you're okay for a little bit of a shortcut. So I'm using Command T. We've used this a few times in the course for resizing, right? We hold shift, okay, and we hold down, remember, option on a Mac or alt on the PC. So shift and option, okay, and I can shrink this thing in and out. That's kind of half what I want, but I want to rotate it as well. The cool thing about using that shortcut, which is Command T on a Mac, Control T on a PC, is that, watch this. If I grab the corner, it's scale, but if I hover just out here, I'm not doing anything, I'm just moving my mouse out here. Can you see it turns into like a little rotation arrow? So now I can click, hold, and drag it, just kind of rotate it around, move it here, kind of get it to where I need it to be. Enter on my keyboard just to commit that. I'm going to pick a font, I'm going to use white. Font size is going to be a lot smaller, 6 point, okay. Moving around the line again, so I'm going to have to rotate it again, Command T, and just drag it around. Scott Shoes. Scale it up a bit. Another little thing that's happening there is I'm trying to drag and it's kind of like snapping to things, which is kind of cool, but sometimes you just like, go where I want you to go, okay, instead of jumping around. You can go to View and turn off Smart Guides, but what I like to do is on my keyboard is just use the arrow keys. So look down your keyboard, just the up, down, left, right. You can tap things around. It's kind of handy. Hit return when you're ready. That is going to be the top part of my circle. Now, what you assume is you can type on the bottom of that same circle. That's not possible. What you need to do is just have a second ellipse, make sure it's set to path, and draw out another ellipse. Don't worry too much about the size because you're going to have to resize it to suit the circle and the font you pick. Okay, to move it around, go back to the direct selection tool, get it roughly in the right position. Grab the type tool, click once down here, and I'm going to say established, which totally missed it. Escape key. I'm going to go to edit, step backwards. And remember, you got to look out for that perfect icon. Okay, so I've got it flashing in the right place now. EST 2019. So it's doing what the top one did, okay, which is the outside. Now remember when we were doing this and we flipped it over by accident? We want to do it on purpose now. So grab the direct selection tool. What we'll do is click, hold, and drag it. And you want to drag it so it's on that other side. It's a bit fiddly, I know. Just click and hold and drag it until it flips onto the other side. Now I'm going to use my, back to my move tool, using Command T or Control T on a PC to rotate it around to get it to kind of where I want to go. Turn on my keyboard. It's looking okay. Now, if you are thinking, that seemed kind of painful, Dan, it is kind of painful in Photoshop. It does it fine. Illustrator does it better, as well as InDesign. They do this kind of like type on a path thing a lot nicer, and there's a little bit more sophisticated tools, but Photoshop does it fine-ish. Now you can leave now. I'm going to go and play with my fonts. I'm going to grab my type tool. I am going to say the light version. I want it all to be light. I'm going to play around with the tracking as well. Hit escape, I'm going to undo. I want you to be the light version. I want you to be the super heavy version. You can see it kind of adjust the lines. There's a lot of rotating to get everything to look nice. Same with established. I'm actually going to drop down the font size to something smaller. Do the same thing here. So I'm going to make you the big heavy one. And I'm going to make you. If you're finding it hard to select on, I am finding it hard too. Pick my move tool, transform it around a little bit. Actually, what I might do is before I rotate it around with this layer selected, this one here we haven't really looked at. It's called tracking or kerning. Okay, it's the space between letters. So I'm going to drag it up or down. So I'm going to say I want it to be about 50 because it's on the inside of the circle. They're kind of starting to touch. So with Scott shoes, okay, I wanted to maybe tuck it in a little bit because it's expanded out. So maybe minus 50. Now there's a lot of rotating and resizing. Cool, so we're nearly at the end, or we're at the end. What I'm going to do is add that kind of S in the middle here and set you a little project. So I've called mine Scott shoes. You give yours your own name, pick your own fonts, see if you can get the type to bend round, make it look nicer than my version. And we're going to pick a big kind of like hero, we're picking a logo type. And I'm just going to cheat by grabbing the type tool, clicking once out here. I'm going to type a capital S. I'm going to go through my fonts and I've already gone through my fonts. I'm lying. It's the one that I want is, so it's not a logo I've designed, I've cheated and just used the font. Where is it called? It's called Hobos? Oh, I'm not sure. And I'm going to grab my font size and just make it nice and big. You probably don't have that font, so go through and find a font that you like as a nice big kind of logo type. And I want to see what you make. Okay, so you might have a really long name, okay? So, but give it your name, pick some fonts, circles, colors. I'd love to see a screenshot of what you make for your brand. Doesn't even have to be shoes, just be your name. I just wanted you to prove to me you can do type on a path, and out of, when you're posting it, okay, give me a out of 10 how painful it was. Okay, I still find it painful and I'm pretty good at this. So you might find it even more painful. So out of 10, 10 being mind-blowingly brain-melting painful, and one being super, super easy. I don't know what you're going on about, Dan. So send it to me on social media. Instagram, I'm Bring Your Own Laptop. On Twitter, I'm Dan Loves Adobe, or just post it here on this page. Thanks for tuning in, one of the longer ones. I will see you in the very next video. Hi everyone, in this video we are going to add stroke around text and objects, and even we're going to get a bit fancy with double strokes that have patterns in them. Alright, let's go and do that now in Photoshop. Hi there! To get started, you can use the file that we've been working on or just work with any file. We'll start with adding stroke to the text and then an object and doing multiple strokes. All very exciting. So start with the all stars text. So I've got it selected here in my layers. Make sure it's this light gray. And adding a stroke around the outside, use this little effects little icon down the bottom. Click on them and go to stroke. It's that easy. Now, yours is probably going to look nothing like mine. Mine remembers the last thing I did. Yours is probably going to be, whizzing through it there, black and like 1 point. So you might be looking at it and going, I can't even see it. It's a little bit hard to see, right? So grab the size, crank it up. And you can see in my case, it depends on what position yours is set to. I think it's probably by default set to center. I think so. So inside, okay, is the inside of the text. And you can kind of see when I get to this size, it's all on the inside of the font. Outside, and center. Okay, it straddles both sides of the outside of the text. In my case, I want outside. I'm going to lower it down a little bit. I'm going to pick a color. Okay, now you can pick a color from in here. What I'm going to do is I'm not going to hold anything down. I can just click out here anywhere and it picks colors from the document. Okay, so find something you like that maybe ties in with the background. That's going to work for me. I'm going to click OK. And yeah, that's adding stroke to text. Click OK. Say you really like it and you want to do the same thing to the C Taylor here. What you can do is you can right click the layer. So I'm right clicking the word, not the icon or anything else, just the word All Stars, right click it. And there's this one here that says copy layer style. So that's what these things are called. This little button down the bottom here is called a layer style. Okay, all of these are layer styles. So right clicking it and saying copy layer style, okay, I've copied it. I can find the C layer, C Taylor layer. Okay, and right click him and say paste layer style. And along he comes for the right. I don't like that, so I'm going to go to edit undo, but that's the way to do that. Now you can add strokes to anything. We've done it for text, but you can do the same thing for objects. Okay, so this little rectangle here, I can right click and go to stroke and there's nothing different. Okay, I just add a stroke around it. The only thing you might notice is that it's kind of faded out. You're like, like it should be exactly the same sort of color as this, and the opacity is right up and it's not the same. It's because we actually lowered the opacity of this rectangle, okay, earlier on in a previous course. You might not be following along in order, but all that's happened is, let's say I'm going to adjust this to be really big and pick up another color. Click OK. What's happening is, see this opacity here on this layer? So the layer selected, the opacity was set to 50. If I turn it back to its pure black color, that stroke comes back to life. And both of those things I hate, so I'm going to go to edit step backwards to get rid of the stroke. A better example